Welcome back to Creepy Diaries. Picture yourself in a snowstorm, all alone, in an unknown place. Today, we've got stories that'll test your bravery, blending the everyday with the unexpected. Are you ready to dive into the mystery of an unexpected visitor during a snowstorm, the horror of a night in a forgotten motel, and the tension of a late-night delivery that takes a sinister turn? We want to know. Would you have the guts to face these situations? What would you do when confronted with the unknown and dangerous? So, let's get started. It was early December, and I was at home this night, spending my day off inside by the fireplace. It was way too cold and snowy outside for my liking. I did a bunch of things around the house that needed to get done, but otherwise, it was a relaxing day. I had the news running in the background, listening to how high winds and possible blizzards were to be expected starting that night. By 5 o'clock, I was already starting to notice it getting worse outside. I sat on the couch and turned on a different channel around 7 o'clock. Though I could hear the wind slamming against the house, it really did sound like there was a blizzard. I got up and went to the window facing the backyard to see how it looked outside. At first, all I saw was snow rushing to the ground with almost no visibility, but then I saw something else, a figure walking through my backyard. My backyard was pretty big and didn't have a fence, so it wouldn't have been that unexpected if it weren't for the blizzard going on. Whoever was out there was just walking at a regular pace, going toward the end of my yard before the snow and darkness took over any sight I had of them. I stayed by the window for a minute, trying to catch one more look and figure out what they were doing, but I didn't see anything. I was honestly scared for them, but also couldn't see why they'd be out there at all. The end of my yard that they were walking to led to a road, but it wouldn't get them anywhere for miles, which was not doable on foot. I went back to the TV, but I still couldn't help thinking about it. Only 5 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. I went over and cracked it open. It was a man in a heavy winter jacket. His nose was bright red, and his face was pale white like he'd been out in the cold for a while. I couldn't know if this was the same person I'd seen in my backyard, but my immediate guess was that it was. "How can I help you?" I asked. The man let out a humble smile and spoke through shaking teeth that he was waiting for a ride to pick him up. He asked if he could stay in my house for a few minutes to shelter from the cold, just until the ride got here. I took a moment to respond because I actually considered it given the state of the weather. It's easy to say that under no circumstance would you let a random man inside your house, but when they're practically freezing to death on your doorstep and asking for your help, the answer on what to do isn't as black and white. I told him he could wait on my porch, which had an overhang that blocked the snow, and offered to give him an old jacket of mine if he needed it. The man didn't look too happy, but just nodded and went off to the side and sat on the chair I had out there. I closed and locked the door, then went upstairs to grab my old jacket. It was way too big for me and was in horrible condition, but obviously that shouldn't matter in this kind of scenario. I picked it up and walked downstairs, about to unlock the door and open it, but something stopped me just a moment before. I don't know what it was, but it made me hesitate. I leaned over and looked through the peephole. The man was now standing right up against the door with his hand on the handle, like he was preparing to push it open as soon as I unlocked it. I felt my heart rate increasing as I took a couple of steps back and quietly pulled my phone out to dial 911. As I whispered into the phone, I just stared at the door with wide eyes, knowing what was waiting for me on the other side. Once the police said they were on their way, I slowly crept over and looked out again. The man wasn't there, not on my porch or anywhere in my front yard. He was just gone, like he knew that I had called the police. Nothing else was found that night, and no signs of him ever showed up again. What he would have done if I had opened the door, I can't be sure of, but hopefully, he never comes. Last year, during the holidays, I decided to visit my family who lived 15 hours away. My usual strategy was to tough it out in one long drive, but this time, early snowfall made the journey slower. Around 8 hours into the drive, frustration grew as I hadn't even reached halfway, and it was already 9 p.m. With snow accumulating on the roads, I decided to stop at a hotel for the night. Unprepared, I didn't book in advance, planning to find a room wherever I could. By midnight, I'd had enough and pulled off the next exit into a small, rundown motel. The motel, a long one-story building with around 10 rooms, looked old and dimly lit. The front desk had a sign reading "Be back in 15" with a picture of a coffee cup, indicating a break. Disappointed, I walked back to my car, only to notice the completely empty parking lot. No cars were in sight, and it seemed like no one had been there for a while. Feeling uneasy, I debated my next move, considering the lack of alternatives within 15 minutes. Despite the cold, I decided to wait in my car, but exhaustion took over, and I fell asleep. When I woke up hours later, snow was falling heavily, and the wind was making my car sway. To my horror, I noticed a man peering through my window. Startled, I jolted back, and he yelled towards the parking lot. Another man emerged from a truck, and they both approached, one trying the door handles. Panicking, I tried to reverse my car, but the men were closing in. One attempted to break the back window, and as he succeeded, I managed to get traction and escape. Though I don't entirely blame myself, falling asleep in that deserted parking lot was a risky move. Those men seemed prepared, almost as if they knew the motel was an easy target. Whatever their intentions, I'll likely never know, but escaping that night was a narrow and terrifying experience. For the past couple of years, I've worked on Uber Eats during winter break from college. College lets out for a whole month, and Uber Eats is the easiest work to do without having to go through job interviews and all that stuff. Besides, I didn't work during school, so this was something simple to pick up on the holidays. It was a few weeks before Christmas when this happened. This night, it was snowing heavily, but I really couldn't be picky with what day to work, since I only had a set amount of time off to make enough money to last until the next break. I borrowed my dad's pickup truck and started driving. The snow must have kept a lot of other drivers home because I was getting orders all night, big ones too, the kind that pay a lot. I did this for probably a good 3 hours, and then an order came in to pick up from a drive-through place. The house was 20 minutes from me, but the tip and everything was really good. There honestly wasn't anything unusual or off about this order, it was just like any other. I picked it up and went on my way to the house. From a quick look at the map, it looked like it was in a pretty nice neighborhood on the other side of the county. I'd been around there before but not really inside the neighborhoods. By this time, it was 11 p.m., and a lot of snow had started to stack up on the roads. I was also getting tired, so I agreed with myself that this would be the last delivery, and then I'd go home and work again tomorrow. Once I got to the neighborhood, I drove through the street and looked at the houses as I passed by. They were all huge and had a ton of land between each of them, but none of the houses seemed to be very new. They had that typical older mansion style of basically just being really large and nothing else. Anyway, it took a while to get to the address I was supposed to deliver to. The driveway was covered in at least a foot of snow, so I parked on the road while I got out and walked up to the house, getting snow all over my pants and shoes. I noticed no lights were on in the windows, and there was a piece of paper taped to the front door. Once I got up to the porch, I took a closer look. On the top of the page, it said "Notice" in big red font. The first few lines stated it was issued by the county, but before I got too far in, I heard footsteps crunching in the snow behind me. I turned around, seeing a man approaching me from around the garage. He had a short buzz cut and was wearing a dirty jacket. "Just dropping off your order," I said to break the silence, but the man continued walking up without saying anything. Once he was a few feet away, I could tell there was something off about him. I guess it was just a gut feeling. He looked at me with cold and tired eyes, then held his hand out for the bag. I reached over and gave it to him, but he didn't move. He was standing right on the path leading to the driveway, and as the seconds passed, I realized how completely strange it was for him to even be out here, and even more so that he wasn't heading inside, now that he had the bag. "Have a good night, sir," I said, stepping to the side and starting to walk past him. The man stayed where he was before abruptly turning, and in the corner of my eye, it looked like he swung his arm out, as if trying to grab me. I stumbled back and faced him as he began stepping toward me, saying, "Come with me," while reaching his hand out. I kept moving back as fast as I could in the thick snow, and the man continued to chase me, yelling at me to stop running. Once I got a good footing, I was able to outrun him and get in my car, backing out before he even had the chance to get to me. As I drove off, I looked in my mirror and saw the man standing in the driveway and just watching. I called the cops once I was out of the neighborhood, but the man was already gone. Later that night, though, they told me that the house wasn't currently owned by anyone at the moment, which I assumed the note on the door had something to do with. What the man was trying to do is unknown, but that whole situation has put me on edge whenever I pull up to a house with all the lights off, wondering if it might be the same man. And there you have it, folks, the end of yet another gripping series of tales that had us on the edge of our seats. But don't go anywhere just yet. We've got 2 more videos lined up for you that you're not gonna want to miss. Just click right over here and keep the suspense rolling. Stick around for more thrills and chills. See you in the next one.